great topic actually
Hey,
to
Chuck,
start
wait your
with.
turn. We're trying to start the intro here.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk comics, everyone. As you can see, we got everyone loaded up. We had some technical problems getting onto this moment. So, uh, look, here we are. We're talking about comic books. There is no script. I have no idea what we're doing. So, we're just going to go with it. So, I got some great people with me. We're going to start with Steve because he was on first, and then we'll go to introduce Geoff, and then we'll introduce Chuck, and you guys just introduce who you are to the viewing audience. So go ahead, Steve. Tell them who you are.
Okay, I'm a 30-plus year veteran of the comic industry. I've been an editor for small press publishers and working freelance. I've been submissions editor, editor-in-chief, everything in between. I've been a publisher, retailer. I teach comics to readers and creators and publishers alike. And so I'm all around comic geek. So
I love comic geeks. And Geoff, who are you? Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Geoff Weber. I'm the comic creator for a comic called The Scientists. It's the third issue coming out in May.
And Chucky, talk to him. Tell him who you are.
Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Chuck. I'm a 3-year editor veteran. I've been working mostly with indie comics people such as our own Rob and tons of other great people. And I also write and create my own series, Welcome to the Void and Belial.
All right, so what's going on in comics, guys? Someone throw out a topic and let's go.
Steve, you had a good one from the Editors Alliance.
Yeah, talk about that.
So on the Editors Alliance, I was talking about the marketing aspect or identifying the target market as a creator. And one of the things I was explaining on there was that identifying a target market isn't exactly like identifying what dish soap the average housewife wants to use. It's more if you're writing for yourself or you're writing for somebody else. If you're working for Marvel or DC, for example, you're writing for the audience that is already established. But as a creator-owned creator, you're either creating something for someone like yourself or someone who is completely different from yourself that you're hoping to reach.
So what do you guys think of that?
I mean, I've been a part of this conversation. I mean, it's tough to nail down exactly what the target audiences are. And for me, a lot of times, like as an editor for smaller indies, sadly, I don't get to drop the hammer the way that somebody who works for a publisher does. I kind of just have to give my advice and say, guys, this is how I feel. And if they don't feel what I'm saying, they get to override me, and that can be difficult.
What do you got, Geoff? What do you think?
Finding your ideal reader is a great exercise to do. It's something that you can definitely do when you are, like, if you're trying to do any kind of advertising or somebody wanted to say hello. If you're trying to do any kind of advertising, it helps if you can sort of come up with what in your mind would be like the perfect reader for your book, and just describe as much as you can about them, what types of interests they would have, what types of TV shows they would be into, what other comics they would be reading, and then you can kind of create like a profile, and then use that profile to sort of when you're creating your ads, when you are making social media posts to better target, and so that way you can try to connect what you're doing with the people that would be more likely to appreciate the work that you're creating.
Now, as for myself, and Chuck probably knows this a little bit, and it seems like it's a dog show because Chuck's got his puppy on his lap too. So it's like this show has gone to the dogs already. Uh, but for me, as a creator, and Chuck can back me up on this, I didn't write my book about fetish for necessarily the fetish community. I wrote it for everyone. And I go out to the Comic Cons and I tell everyone about the book, no matter what I think that they might read or not read. I try to capture all audiences. It's easier in person than it is actually online, believe it or not. So it is one of those things. I don't limit myself to an audience. Would you agree with that, Chuck? With the way that I wrote the book?
So I missed a little bit of that just with the phone.
Oh,
Can you just repeat the last sentence? No, you're good.
I was saying that I aim for a bigger audience than just who I think will read my book. I put out my book to be something that grabbed people who weren't even into the topic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially with Barbara Unleashed and whatnot. It's easy. I mean, it would be easy just to aim for the fetish community, but you haven't. And the neat thing is that it's more about introducing people to what it is and what it really means, rather than just trying to find the people who already know.
Yeah, because I think when you pigeonhole yourself into just accepting, well, this is my fan base, you get in trouble. Now, I'll be honest, online it does not work as well as it does on shows, and I haven't necessarily been able to figure out why. And I've talked with Travis, because Travis has sat next to me. He's like, you can sell like all that, and you get online and you have trouble. And I think it's more censorship that gets me. What do you guys think about censorship in comics right now? We seem to be coming into another wave where people want us to start censoring what we're doing. Do you guys think this is a bad time to be creating if you're going to be stepping out of the okay boundaries?
I guess for me personally, I've always said fuck censorship. So if even it's basically if it's gonna happen and we're gonna get puritanical, I'm just gonna fight it, and I'm just gonna keep putting out what I think is good material and fun for people to read and that they're gonna enjoy. And I'm not gonna dumb myself down for anyone else unless that's the target audience that we're aiming for.
Fair enough. Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
I haven't had to deal with censorship because I haven't delved into any topic that was really controversial, but I can imagine how frustrating it would be if you are doing something that some people might consider taboo, and then to have posts that you're making getting reported and stuff like that, and feeling like your hands are getting tied.
Well, just wait till you meet a flat earther, Geoff. The minute you meet a flat earther, your scientist book is going to run into a lot of problems.
Yeah. I find one of the things with censorship right now is it really limits who you can actually target with your material, because if you're dealing with customers at a convention and your material is not acceptable, I've experienced with certain creators that they haven't been permitted to attend a show because of the content of their material. They haven't been permitted to have a table. You can't sell to a certain audience. You have to have it bagged, even on the store shelf, because if someone younger sees that material, then there's a chance that it'll be sensitive to the parents and so on and so forth. So there's definite need for a certain amount for cause, and it really depends on who and how you approach that readership.
I agree. And I think that since we're talking about comics today, because I don't think anyone else has any more comments about censorship, and I don't want to drone on, did you guys see that there is new footage from the Avengers that came out today?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I can't play it because of copyright laws, but they actually look at Thanos. So you guys excited? Because we're talking about comic books. How can we not talk about probably the biggest movie ever created for comic books? I think we can all agree. There's never been as big a comic book movie as there is with the Avengers. And
I mean, how many movies have we had that have basically led up to this? So yeah, I would agree it's the biggest because we've had like 15 or 20 movies that have all in some way or another, every single one of those movies have led up to this one here. So yeah, it is the biggest, not just, because it's Marvel or anything like that, but because of the story that they're telling, this is what they were leading up to.
There have been 19 produced films. So yeah, this would be the 20th film.
Yeah.
According to a quick Google search. What do you guys think? Are you going to see it opening weekend? Who's going to see it? Who's doing what? Steve, thoughts?
I'm excited for it.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Jump in. You're excited?
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next Avengers. I haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, but I've seen most of the Marvel movies, so I'm on board.
I'm always one myself who, if there's going to be a lot of content that is sensitive for my son, who's 10 years old, and he has his own levels of sensitivity, I'll go see it in advance. But I haven't had any issues with things like the Avengers. And I'm looking very forward to it and seeing which characters come back, which ones end up dying in the end, or because I know certain contracts with the actors are coming to an end. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that.
That's true. That's a good point. Solid point. Chuck, have you missed any of the Marvel movies? Have you seen them all? That's a good question.
Just Captain Marvel is the only one I have to see.
And Jeff, I know, stepped away. Steve, have you missed any of the Marvel movies?
I've seen all of them. Some of them more than once, some more than 5 times. I did see Captain Marvel. I have my own opinion of it. Whether or not everybody shares it is another story, but it's a good lead-in. And I did find out in the Captain Marvel mid-credit scene that it actually wasn't the director of the Captain Marvel movie who directed that particular mid-credit scene. It was the Russo brothers.
Oh.
So it actually ties in more closely with the upcoming Endgame.
Oh, wow.
I actually did know that because I'm a huge Russo fan because of the Avengers. So what do you guys think? Who's making it? Let's go on record. Who do you think's making it? Who do you think's dying? Let's go. We'll start with Steve. Who makes it out?
Well, I think for sure that some of the secondary characters are going to continue forward. I would not doubt that someone like Falcon and Winter Soldier, who are actually supposed to be having a TV series along with Vision and Scarlet Witch and some of the other Avengers characters going to more television-based material, they're going to survive. Whether or not characters like Thor or Steve Rogers as Captain America or the Iron Man, Tony Stark character continue forward, I don't believe so. With the contracts coming up, I mean, some of them have already signed on for beyond the 6 films that they initially signed on for. So it'll be interesting to see what Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans do.
All right, Jeff, what's your prediction? That's a good one, though, Steve. I like it. Jeff, what do you got?
I predict that this is the end of Captain America.
And do you think everyone else survives, though? You think it's just Captain who's going to go?
I think he said that he wanted to do other stuff, so I think they're going to write him out for sure. Other characters that I think Vision's probably going to go. I'm not sure about Iron Man.
Chuck, what do you think?
So I think Captain America's gone. I think we're all pretty much, just as far as all the behind the scenes stuff. I think I would love to see what they did in the comics come into the movies, and that's where they kill off Iron Man, but he sticks around as a hologram. That means that Tony Stark can still do small things, and he doesn't have to. They don't have to use him as much, which means they can keep his contract low. And it won't be a lot of work. It will just be some green screen work. and they basically digitize him.
Another option with regards to Tony Stark, if they were to go that route, would be to get an actor who can do a voice acting similar to Robert Downey's voice. They actually did that a number of years back with Aladdin, and they introduced a character who had a very similar voice. They do it all the time for movies to animated cartoons.
The genie.
You know, like the genie, and there was a character who it was based on Sean Connery's voice, but they got another English actor who sounded very similar accent-wise and such to take on the voice, but it wasn't Sean Connery.
How cool would it be if we basically had a role reversal where Vision is alive and we get to see his face and his voice and everything, and him once being Jarvis, and then effectively Tony Stark becomes the new Jarvis, and he is the voice instead of the face.
That'd be cool. I have a little bit of a different take on it. I don't think that Thor, Captain America, or Iron Man are going to die in the way that we think they're going to die. I think the actors will be replaced. I think Thor's hammer is going to be passed on and we'll get a new Thor. I think Iron Man will just be replaced with War Machine. I think War Machine will just become Iron Man. And I think that Captain America, the one twist I see coming, I think they're going to turn Captain America old. They're going to age him, get an older actor to play Captain America, and see if the younger actor will come back one day to play Captain America again. Let him go off and do a couple things for a couple of years and see if he ever comes on back to the franchise. Because that's a lot of money he's walking away from. And I think you guys are right. I think we're not done with seeing the Iron Man Tony Stark that we've gotten to know. I think he will somehow go forward. I wouldn't doubt him being an AI, and I like Chuck's twist on it.
I don't think that we're going to lose Thor, though. I don't think Thor's going to be gone.
Well, I think they're going to kill the Thor we
know. He's still pretty young, and I think he really likes the role.
No, he said he's walking away. His contract's over. Yeah, he said he's walking. Right, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he's walking away.
Well, these actors, the initial three, or the Trinity, as we could put it, signed on for 6 appearances. They signed on for 6 appearances, and that actually got extended for Chris Evans, who appeared in one of the Thor movies, and Robert Downey appeared in Spider-Man and other stuff as well. But those were additions to the original 6. And I know for Chris Evans, he's interested in directing a lot more than he is acting at this point.
I could see them doing what they did in the comics with Riri Williams taking over the Iron Man role.
Mm-hmm. They're actually leading into doing something with a young Avengers type of team with the introduction of, I don't know if you've seen in the trailers how Hawkeye is training this young female archer, who in the comics is Kate Bishop. She becomes a female Hawkeye. The introduction of Cassie, Scott Lang's daughter, who becomes Stature in the comics. So these young characters are actually being introduced for a purpose. It's not just happenstance.
I think that's a solid point. I do think that what you're saying makes sense because they definitely seem to want younger actors. I know that there's a rumor that Tom Holland wasn't even given the script because he's got kind of loose lips about things. So I don't know how much they're going to be really eager to have the younger kids who tweet a lot necessarily in prize roles, but I definitely could see them as background characters.
I will say, though, that I find that out of the original trinity of actors and characters, that Chris Hemsworth, in my opinion, is the one who is the most easily replaceable.
Yeah?
Yeah, because he doesn't have the iconic presence that Chris Evans does in his role, where it's almost like a perfect fit. Personality-wise, Chris Evans is Steve Rogers. The same thing with Robert Downey. But I find that they could change out the actor with who plays Thor, with relative ease.
Yeah, I can see. What do you guys think? Could they recast Thor without a problem?
I don't know that I actually agree with that statement. I agree with the fact that the other two really play their role well. But I think the advantage to those characters is that we've seen that they change and that other people take on those mantles. Whereas Thor, yes, technically others have taken it on, but not to as positive a degree. Like most of the people who've taken over Thor, people haven't really attached. You seen Thunderstrike around now that all these other guys are out? That name's not even coming up. So, yeah, I don't know if it would be that easy. I get what you're saying, but I don't know, man. I wonder if some of these deals have been inked in back rooms and we just don't know about them, and they've kept them quiet specifically for Endgame. And so suddenly, when Endgame comes out, they can be like, "Oh, by the way, Hemsworth is in for five more movies or whatever." Like.
Well, I mean, it definitely make it interesting if that happened, because, I mean, they're even taking Vegas bets at this point for a scripted thing. So that tells you how serious this has gotten.
Yeah.
And no one saw the snap. No one saw the snap coming, them clearing out half the Marvel Universe. So, it's hard because Disney doesn't play around. Disney doesn't really care as long as it's making money, and they seem to want to go in a completely different direction now, leaving the older properties behind, going to newer properties. Miles Morales. I was even surprised that maybe Peter Parker didn't come back and they replaced him with Miles Morales. I thought that would have been interesting. Obviously, it's not happening, but because we know the sequel's coming.
I think if you want to look at the direction of Marvel, and maybe you guys will laugh at me, but this is just kind of coming to my head now. If you want to look at the direction of the Marvel movies, maybe look at the direction of the Star Wars movies, where they're now focusing on the younger characters, on the new universe, and all that kind of stuff, and sort of starting to step away from the Skywalkers. And so, since they're doing that, maybe that's kind of, even a lot of the backstory and whatnot that had been made in the books and stuff, Disney went, nope, sorry, that's an extended universe thing. It's not canon. What we're doing right now is canon. So I wonder if they're really trying to refocus on a younger generation of Avengers so that they have material to go for a longer period of time.
Now, none of us have brought up the giant mutant in the room. X-Men came back. Fantastic Four are coming. Deadpool could show up in Infinity War. All bets are off if Deadpool suddenly walks through. And Ryan Reynolds has been talking a lot about Disney, and Disney's even said he's the one guy to survive. Everyone else's contract is up in the air, if not already canceled. The rumor is New Mutants won't be released in theaters now. Disney doesn't like it.
Yeah, I wonder how long it's going to be before there's a Disney X-Men movie.
Oh, it ain't going to be long. 2020. Kevin Frigg? How do you say his last name? The guy in charge of Disney's movies. Frigg? Yeah. He said by 2020 we should see the first X-Men type based movie, which would, of course, on the schedule right now is Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
And Chuck's wearing the X-Force shirt, so that'd be a perfect thing right there, because that's probably what's going to be next is the X-Force movie.
I don't know if you gentlemen saw on online that they've cast Zac Efron as a replacement for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
Is that actually factual? I thought that was April Fool's.
I think that was an April Fool's thing.
I don't know. He has the build, and he has the presence. And he carries forward the fact that he had an audience when he was working for Disney earlier on with High School Musical and such, that's an audience that is aging just as he's aging. So it might be fact.
But doesn't he look too young and too happy to be Wolverine?
Well, not necessarily, depending on the role. Don't forget that he recently played Ted Bundy.
I didn't see that. Did he really?
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. So he is doing more dramatic and action-based roles. and he has the same type of background and versatility that Hugh Jackman does with the music, with the dancing, with the athleticism. So it could well be.
Oh, I did not. That's awesome, actually. I did not know that. I would like him, actually. What do you guys think of Zac Efron joining the Marvel franchise?
I don't have a problem with it. I think he fits. He would fit the bill pretty well. Hugh Jackman was quite young when he took on the role.
Yeah, he was. He really was. We really watched him become Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
Hard for me to picture anybody but Hugh Jackman in that role.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Tom
Actually,
Hardy.
I'm a Wolverine fan and a Wolverine purist. And when Jackman first took on the role, I was disappointed because he was too tall.
Yeah.
And I like that if you watch Jackman, he at least played short. He would stoop down and he would, he usually didn't stand up to his full height. So I like that. But is Jackman the only person who can do that role? Hell no. Honestly, if you were asking me, if you look at the old Wolverine, he's based upon the Man with No Name. He's based upon Clint Eastwood. And so I would really love to see his son, Scott Eastwood, play Wolverine. I think that would be killer.
That's not a bad one. You know who I'd like to see? Tom Hardy play Wolverine.
Well, with
I'd
him,
like to see him play a good Venom.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he did, jerk.
He did pretty good.
I actually liked Venom. I think everyone just hated on that because there was no Spider-Man. I thought Venom was actually really good. I just thought it was a soft story. I think they just threw as much shit at the wall as they could to see what would stick.
I agree. It was a soft story. He did do well. It was just not a great story.
I just saw Venom yesterday, actually. I thought it was pretty good.
Right. I love the fact he has that relationship with Venom where he's like, "What's wrong with you? Why would you eat people?"
mm-hmm.
I liked Venom, so forget you, Chuck. I think Tom
I'm
Hardy.
not a hater. I just didn't love it.
I think he'd be a great
I don't
Wolverine.
think that there was enough there to want to keep making Venom movies.
Well, that's why I said he'd be a good Wolverine. We could get rid of Venom.
Yeah, I think with someone like the Wolverine character, you need somebody who is going to bridge the gap between audiences. And Scott Eastwood doesn't have enough of a following, I find, to really bring in the audience. Whereas Zac Efron is the actor who has the range, who can fit that role. Mind you, there are a lot of actors that Marvel has cast who are basically complete unknowns until they're actually cast.
Like Jackman.
Like Jackman. And I mean, that wasn't, I don't know if Marvel had so much an influence or if it was Fox that had more say in that. But yeah, with Marvel, they've really been able to identify the actors who really portray those characters with depth.
Well, Jackman was before Disney. He was before Jackman came in before Disney owned Marvel.
That's right.
So I would assume at that point,
Jackman was their second choice.
Yeah, who was the first again? I forgot.
His shoot. Oh, I just he's such a. I want to say he's a nobody. Dunkirk Scott or something like that.
Yeah. I think that's it.
He was so the funny story with him was he was the prince in Ever After with Drew Barrymore, and then he was doing Mission Impossible 2, which, as far as the Mission Impossible movies are concerned, was the absolute abortion worst of them all. I'm sorry, it's true, folks. Come yell at me later on, and I'll just laugh at you. But he was doing that movie, and they asked him. They were like, "Hey, man, you're supposed to be doing Wolverine right now." And he said, "Nah, sorry guys, we've gone into extra shoots on MI2, and I'm gonna be I won't be available." And so they had to go to someone else, and so they left on a complete unknown at the time, and that was Jackman, who killed it. He did do really well.
Well, I love talking about comic books and nerd stuff too, but I do want to talk about some stuff from indie comics. So let's switch gears. We'll go check out Indie Advocates, and we'll see what's made news a little bit. And Chuck will go over more of this later on today when he does the news, but we'll see what's going on. First off, what do you guys think about me being the host of Geek Dating, the new series that we started yesterday?
Geek Dating.
You don't know about this, Chuck? Oh, this is
No,
fantastic.
I've heard little bits of it, but I haven't actually gone and read about it. Because as a guy who's been married for almost 20 years, it's not really something I'm that worried about.
Well, okay, here's the one thing. I started reading about dating, actually, and I was talking to someone about it, and he was the one who suggested I did a show about it, because I was, like you, I've been married for a long time, and this wasn't, like, my interest in personally dating. I have to write about a character dating. Barbara, she's going to try to date in the 4th issue.
Oh, okay.
So I had to write about her experiences of dating in this world, and the first draft I wrote of the book, it was like she was dating in the 1990s, and I realized that I was writing everything like an old man. So I had to start reading about dating. So I was bitching to one of my friends, and he was like, a lot of people I know who are geeks are having trouble dating, and they're having trouble finding people. He's like, you should do like a series about it and talk about dating. He's like, first off, you're going to start dating eventually again now that you're single, and you're seeing the world from a guy who last time you really seriously dated was in the 90s. Because even when I met my wife, I was so busy working as a professional, I wasn't dating a lot. I used a program, and I met her. Like, my last couple girlfriends I'd found through work, and I really hadn't dated in a long time. So what do you guys think of that? I know all three of you are married, I presume. Geoff, are you married? You're married, right?
Yes, I'm married.
Steve?
Yes, married a second time.
There we go. All right. So what do you guys think about...
I understand what you mean, because I was with my first wife for 15 years, off between relationships for 6 months, and then met my current wife. So I know the whole dating thing.
How long have you and your current wife been together for, Steve?
17 years we just celebrated.
Wow,
Congrats.
congratulations.
That's awesome.
So now let me ask you a question. As someone who broke out of prison, what made you go back to prison?
Well,
He waits until I drink.
the first time was like Siberia, and this time it's more like remand, or the where the rich people go.
Oh, you're at the country club, huh? It's prison, but not really. Like, they don't really lock the front gate. It's just there.
Exactly. I can walk out the front door anytime as long as they know I'm coming back.
Fair enough. That's actually I've never heard anyone say that. I like that. It's really clever. But what do you guys think about talking about dating now? We've just gone through the Me Too generation, which fell apart when the founder was found guilty of sexual harassment. Didn't see that one coming. But it kind of was funny from a comedic standpoint. But I mean, like, dating as adults, like, do you guys look at the younger people and the things they're doing, and do you go, oh my God, I'm so glad I don't have to date now as the married men in here? Are you happy you're not dating?
Absolutely. The idea of dating right now would scare the crap out of me. And it's just because, I mean, things like Tinder and Grindr and all this kind of stuff, like, it's completely made dating totally different. And so for me, as a guy who's usually calm, cool, collected, and kind of good in social situations, we don't have those social situations to deal with so much anymore. You have to impress somebody in like a 15-minute video or a 15-second video, or in whatever they see on your social media and all that kind of crap, or whatever your picture is. And that doesn't give me the chance to give my pitch.
I like that, the pitch at the elevator. What about you guys? Steve, what do you think of dating nowadays from an outside point of view?
To be honest, I have 5 kids, 4 of whom are adults. And one's married, another one's engaged, about to be married in August. And my 2 daughters are 18 and 22. And the whole dating scene and the Tinder and all that, all the really risky meeting sites like that really concern me, especially given that they're girls.
I can imagine that. Jeff, what about you? What do you think about dating as the old man in the room?
I mean, I don't necessarily know if the new ways, like doing it through an app, is any more or less risky than just randomly meeting somebody like at a bar, or however people used to do it. I don't know how they used to do it, but for the geek side of it, since it's sort of the question about geek dating, I think that geeks are at an advantage now in that there's not really a stigma associated with being a geek. Now everybody's a geek, so you can be, you know, out and open with what you like, and it won't come back to bite you.
Yeah.
Now, do you believe that?
Sorry.
Do you believe that, guys, that we're okay to be real geeks in the culture? Because I find that when I start geeking out, people might not try to make fun of me, but they roll their eyes still, and they kind of get very disinterested very quickly. Like, oh, like I'm a geek until it comes to actually picking up a comic book. That's what I get a lot of out there. Like, I love the Marvel movies. Oh, do you know that was based on the comic book Civil War, where Captain America died? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, I can't talk to you. I'm out.
No. And really, I find that's the same thing as being a professional in the comic industry right now. Is, you know, at one point I was uncomfortable saying that I worked in the comic industry, you know, and now whenever I say that I'm you know, creating comics, I get more fascination and more interest than ever before.
That is actually a good point. There is some legitimate, like when I say I create comics now, people don't go, oh, do you live in your mommy's basement?
Yeah.
You know, like that used to be like the instant thing that we're socially awkward. And get it, I am socially awkward, so it would make sense. But yeah, the geek dating was one of those things that I'm really hoping not to get in trouble with saying something when I'm on the live videos. I remember last night I was introducing myself. I figured for the first episode I'd just talk about myself. And I'm like, you know, I'm looking for a girl, like for me personally, who's got their stuff together and who's fit. And the minute I said fit, all I could see is the amount of angry messages. Oh, you want a thin girl, do you? You know, like all these people being mad at me. And it wasn't what I meant. I meant like someone who takes care of themselves. Because I don't know about you guys, but I want to know that someone is taking care of themselves. They're not a mess. They have their stuff together. You know what I mean? But I could instantly see Rob's a fat shamer. And if they knew that I had a relationship with Chuck, they'd know that's not true.
Fat shaming bastard.
But I mean, that's a good topic right now, talking about comic books. We're in a world where we can't have honest opinions anymore, aren't we?
I put my honest opinions in my books.
Fair. What do you guys think?
Look, and that's the thing is that we can. I'm not interested in having. Look, I love debating with people, but the problem is that no one wants to have a debate anymore. Everyone just wants to be right, and I want to be right as well. But I want to be right in the sense that if I have a debate with someone and they have taught me that I was wrong, I want to adopt those things that I learned from them and become right. And the problem is that people don't want to do that work. And I know this is a mass generalization, but from what I'm seeing, a massive portion of the population, they just want you to believe that they're right. And so now, like with politics and with comics and what we like and all that kind of stuff, rather than try to actually have an open, honest, interesting debate, you just find your section of the internet where those people believe you, and you can just go over there and hang out, rather than actually do the work and learn and grow and evolve.
That's well said. What do you guys think? Is it okay to have an honest opinion these days? Are we allowed to say what we think?
Jeff, you want to go?
I mean, you got to know who you're talking to. If you just go like sort of like a bulldozer through every social situation, you're gonna trample some egos along the way. So if that's not something that you are concerned about, then have at it. But sometimes you got to be a little bit more delicate and be like, okay, well, this person I got to watch what I say around. This person I can just let it all hang out.
Yeah, I'm definitely the bulldozer. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I find that the taboo topics of politics and religion have expanded to many more topics.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give an example. My 10-year-old son was telling my brother, his uncle, a political joke the other day, and it turns out that my brother has a very strong pro attitude towards this political leader, whereas the joke was very anti this political leader. And my 10-year-old did not know that in advance, and so he ended up getting this massive lecture from his uncle. And but in today's world, it isn't just politics and religion. I mean, you can be talking about, the Me Too movement, and you can be talking about Black Lives Matter, or so many different topics, and even preferences and stuff in comics. Nothing should be taboo, but everything has a certain degree of taboo-ness to it, because everybody is overly sensitive to what is spoken or what is presented.
See, I think I fall into a bad category. I grew up with George Carlin, and George Carlin was anti-censorship. He was like, say whatever you want. Don't let people take your rights away. When we allow people to start telling us what we can and can't say, that's when the real danger sets in. And I've lived my life that way. I don't apologize for having opinions. I don't talk about politics very often at all, and I don't talk about religion. Two things I definitely try to stay away from. But it seems like in this day and age, you get your politics brought up whether you said something or not, because now people assume your politics. I've been called a leftist snowflake and a Nazi in the same thread because no one was reading what I was writing. It was just the moment that I said something they didn't like, they attacked it. Because, and I've said this, and I'm not ashamed of it, as a person who has a mind, I consider myself a moderate or a independent when it comes to ideas. I don't have a team. I don't wear Democrat blue or Republican red, because I don't think any one group gets it right all the time. And that's very dangerous to be this day and age, because if you're not one of us, you're against us. And I think that's definitely the world we live in now. Now, speaking of the world we live in, did you guys know it's Autism Awareness Month?
No.
Yeah, the whole month. That's where our site actually turned blue this morning.
Yeah.
If you guys didn't see, we actually turned blue. We're blue for the entire month. So we do live in a time period where I see people helping each other out more, and with Kickstarters and all of us sharing Kickstarters. I know that, I don't know, Steve, have you ever ran a Kickstarter? Because I know the other gentlemen on the panel have.
I haven't.
So what do you guys think of crowdfunding? We talked about this a year ago, and I want to end the show on this one. And I remember Geoff Weber was actually there a year ago when I said Kickstarter was going to have a big problem. Something's wrong. It's going to start failing Kickstarters. And I remember Geoff being like, well, where's all your statistics? And I'm like, I've been watching it for so long. I saw it coming. And me and Chuck were talking about this at that time. And Chuck was like, you really think it's going to fall out? And then the bottom fell out. Do you guys think crowdfunding is going to become a sustainable thing for us creators? Is it going to continue to allow new creators to have success? Not necessarily established ones. Obviously, established creators are making good money now. I'm talking about new creators. Do you think this is going to be an avenue where it's going to be an open door like it's been in the past?
I would actually say that it's not about new or old. It's about the bar being raised. And so the thing is, with guys like Tyler James Vogel and all these other people who are teaching you how to make it happen on Kickstarter, it's become a lot more difficult because you need to put in your steps. Because if you don't, everyone else is. So I don't necessarily believe that the bottom is falling out of Kickstarter. I believe what it really is that the competition is getting more difficult because everyone else is putting in that time. They're doing their Facebook ads. They're doing their mailing list. They know exactly what steps. I'm seeing more and more comic books becoming projects we love, more than I ever saw at any one time before. And it's because these people are doing the work. They're doing the research. They're learning what they need to do to excite Facebook or to excite Kickstarter, and they're making it happen. So,
Chuck, did you know Cornrows made it?
I did.
Yeah,
I was on the one. Yeah,
that was awesome, right? We saw Cornrows the first time it went, and it failed,
yeah.
and now it finally made it. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
So, Rob, here's what I'm going to have to say to you about the bottom falling out of Kickstarter. All right,
go for it.
I know that you personally feel that it's not doing as well as it has, but if you actually look at the number of projects in the comics category that are succeeding, we are actually seeing growth in terms of the success rate. As of March 2019, the comics category has a 57.17% success rate, which is a 5% growth over the previous year. It's the only category that has seen year-over-year growth in terms of its success rate.
Now, that might not take into consideration the pros that showed up over the last year.
That's out of all comics.
I understand what you're saying, but in the last year, we've seen a lot of pros and a lot of publishers begin to use Kickstarter as well, which goes to the point of what Chuck said, that the bar was raised. So, like Chuck's saying, it might not necessarily be the Kickstarter is falling out. It just might be you have to try harder to get to be noticed. You have to build a better ship. Because I know with the Advocator, we were written off for dead, and we successfully funded that one. So I don't think success can't be found on Kickstarter. I do agree with Chuck, and me and Chuck do the news every week where we talk about these Kickstarters, and we talk about it privately. We've seen a lot of Kickstarters fail that we don't understand it. Cornrows shouldn't have failed the first time, and it did. But now it's come back and it's succeeded. What's that? Dulce. Why did Dulce fail? There's nothing there that makes sense why that Kickstarter failed, other than competition. Because when you look at the platform, I know what you're saying, Geoff, but I'm also seeing probably an increase of projects. If we could see the amount of projects in 2017, 2018, and 2019, I guarantee you there's at least a growth of 25%.
It's the number 3 most successful category on Kickstarter right now. The only 1? 2 that are ahead of it are dance and theater. Okay. And comics is the only category that has had year-over-year growth. Dance and theater have actually, their success rate has actually declined slightly.
Okay, but does it say how many more projects were launched?
Yeah, the number of projects being launched keeps going up and up and up.
Okay, so that's kind of what I'm saying is that I think that here's another thing. I think that there are people who used to run 1 project a year now are running 5 projects a year. And that was in the news recently where and we know this, do you guys know Marcel Dupree, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
He got called out for having so many projects running at the same time. And he is basically on Kickstarter 3 times a month. In all honesty, he is. With his Evolutionine brand, he's on the Kickstarter 3 times a month. So when you start to mix in...
There's 2 on right now.
Yeah. When you start mixing in the fact that people are using Kickstarter more, I can see the numbers not necessarily showing it. Because we look at it, me and Chuck, from more of an indie standpoint, newer creators showing up. That's not to say that newer creators can't find success, because look at Joel Rodriguez. Joel Rodriguez just hit a home run with his...
Chronicles.
Thank you. Dust County Chronicles. So success is there, but I'm also seeing people who shouldn't be failing, who had successful first Kickstarters suddenly struggling. And I think it's a dollar amount that people are struggling with, because I'm noticing that when people are relaunching, they're relaunching for less money. The days of asking for $7,000 for a single issue are slowly dwindling, and now people are going to ask for more printing costs. I'm seeing the more common number this year be $2,000. So I do think people are adjusting. I do see people, because Geoff, you had said you'd struggled more this time around with your last Kickstarter, right?
My second Kickstarter, I had a bit of a sophomore slump. I do feel like I didn't do as good a job of getting the word out leading up to it, so I'm trying to correct that for this third one.
Now, do you think it was that, to go to Chuck's point, do you think you didn't do as good a job, or do you think it was harder now? Because I do think there's a difference. Do you think it's harder to get funded now, or do you think it's just you screwed up your promotion?
I think I just didn't do as good a job as I should have.
Okay, that's fair. Now, what about, I know you were part of Dulce, and what do you think attributed to that, Chuck? Do you have any insight on what went wrong on that?
I will say that the team has said that they may not have done the same amount of pre-work that they did for the first one, and so yeah, there is a bit of a weird X factor where we had a really hard time getting previous backers to jump on, and that was a little weird because, I mean, honestly, if it was a crappy book, then I can understand it. But it really, it's a really good book and it's a really good series. And I'm the editor. I didn't draw it. I didn't write it. I didn't do any of that stuff. So I could look at it objectively. And I've had books that I've edited where I'm like, look, man, they didn't listen to everything, and there could have been some work done. But no, Dulce's a really good book, a really good series, and so. Yeah, I can't fully explain it. Part of it is that they didn't do what we didn't do, the work that we did on the previous one. So I think there might be an arrogance that
here's what I could say a little bit about the quality of the book. You're wondering why people that backed the first one didn't back the second one if the first book was a quality book. Well, part of it is you need to ask yourself how many of those backers actually read the book. I think we get a lot of backers that buy our book but then don't read it. Rob, how many comics have you backed that you haven't gotten around to reading yet?
Over 100, easily over 100. But that also, I'm a little different because people offer me their books every day. I'm asked to do reviews every day. So, but I do see your point. I actually completely agree with you. I know there are people who hadn't read my book for like 6 months and finally read it. And were like, "Do you have a second issue?" Out of nowhere. So I know it was on a pile somewhere.
Yeah, people can't become a fan of your book just because they bought it if they haven't actually read it yet. That's one thing I've been struggling with. Mine is I got these backers of my comic and I'm trying to get them to actually read it now. So I'm trying to do like a contest, like a guess the murder mystery contest to hopefully get them to actually read it.
That's a smart, clever play.
That's the challenge.
I find part of the problem also exists that if it's not the first issue, if it's a second or third issue that's being backed, that it falls under the same marketing slump that any other publisher experiences with the second or third issue.
Yeah, that is true too.
Yeah, there's always a big drop-off on the second issue in the direct market.
So even if somebody has read the book, they might not have been attracted or appealed to the book once they've actually read it. And they might not want it back. One of the things that I am noticing, yesterday, I saw 3 people who are currently running Kickstarters post about how people have canceled their pledge. So for you guys who have run Kickstarters, have you actually had pledges rescinded?
It's a normal thing, yeah.
Yeah, it happens.
Actually, for me, it was weird. I never had it till the Advocator. No, I had one person back out of my first Kickstarter, and then 4 who couldn't pay the bill when the bill came due. But that's different. That's a funding process. But until the Advocator, we lost 10 people during the Advocator. And I think some of it had to do with the fact that the Advocator had a lot of people not focused on it. Like we had Travis who had his Kickstarter. So I think he kind of pulled away from us. We also then had a different Kickstarter running at the same part. So for us, I think it was competition kind of hurt us on the Advocator because people were drawn away from it. Because even on my last campaign, the Barbara Unleashed, I think I had 2 backers drop, and that was it. I had a couple people change, but that's money. I understand not having money and you wanting to cut back a bit. But I didn't see a lot of drop backers, but I do see what Steve's saying. I'm seeing a lot of people complaining about that on Facebook now. And it is weird. It's a trend I'm noticing. And I'm almost wondering if people are just jumping from project to project, like what's the newest project? And that goes back to, I don't know about you guys, but I hate the fact that when someone backs my book, I don't get the money from them right away. Or it's at least not put into a pool. Because then it does give them this, well, I haven't paid for it yet, so I'm not serious. I think whenever you don't make someone pull a trigger, it's dangerous. You know what I mean? Once you spent money, you don't think about the refund process, do you? You try to avoid going to the refund line.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Go ahead.
I mean, I think that the fact that Kickstarter doesn't charge it unless you reach the goal, I think, is a selling point, because that way people feel a little bit more secure to back a project because they know that it's actually going to have a better chance of getting made.
Okay, fair.
One of the things, Rob, that you brought up, it's impulse buy versus the out. So those Kickstarter has that as somewhat of a disadvantage, in that someone can back your project, but because they aren't being charged right away, they have the opportunity to back out. Whereas an impulse buy is immediate, the money's already spent, and so you're dedicated to it. And in some cases, it's like going to Walmart, buying something, finding out you don't like it when you bring it home, and then bringing it back and getting a refund. You know, it's not that simple.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's why at a Comic-Con I do so well, because I do my pitch and I'm sold. I either sold them or I didn't. And it's that simple. I think on Kickstarter, you have time to think about it. With Indiegogo, they take your money right away, so it's a serious, you're seriously going to buy it or you're not. So I do think that hurts Kickstarter a little bit. I do also think that Chuck's right about quality. I think the quality's got to rise with products now. With Dulce, I honestly, from an outsider point of view who watches the indie market, and I'm not involved with it, I do think that there was a lot of mistakes made with promotion. I didn't see it on my feed at all. And I think I was busy during Dulce with my own Kickstarter and kind of some stuff I was going on with the move in the house and rearranging my house. So I didn't have the ability to help out more. But I also do see that Kickstarter isn't what it was 2 years ago, and it's not what it was 3 years ago. I get that Geoff is telling us that you see growth, but 5% growth when you have a 25% uptick in the amount of projects being put on is not as good as it sounds. That means that there's a lot more failure than there was a year ago. There's a lot more failure than there was 2 years ago. I think that there is definitely going to be a science, and I think that unfortunately, because of programs that are being made to cheat the system, to use the system, to groom the system, however you want to word it, it has changed how Kickstarters are being viewed. And I think that you can look at it as unfair or unfair advantage to do those courses, but people are now making money telling you how to successfully fund. What do you guys think about publishers being on Kickstarter, though? Big publishers, because that was a big thing on Kickstarter with Marcel. Do you think that's okay for a publisher to show up and put all their books on it, every single one of their books, and have the community? What? Because I mean, let's not forget, Kickstarter was intended to start something, not continue it going. And with comic books, a lot of people are using it to continue something that should have jump-started, I guess, its own ability to stand on its own, right? Am I wrong? What do you guys think?
I think a company, for example, like Archie Comics, using Kickstarter was kind of a slap in the face. Because here they are, a successful company that's been around for decades, and they're using Kickstarter to fund their projects. Whereas the little man, so to speak, are the ones that need to use it in order to actually fund their projects. So it's kind of taking money from those who have, the need more than they do.
All right. Who's next? What do you got?
I don't see it as it's a finite pool of resources, and if a big guy comes in, it's taking away the money from the little guy. I think it's more of a blue ocean sort of thing, and I think that high-profile projects have the potential to draw more traffic to Kickstarter, because people that might not have already been a part of Kickstarter but are familiar with this publisher, Archie Comics, I know them. They're on Kickstarter. Let me go over to Kickstarter and check it out. So I think it could potentially draw more people to the platform.
Chuck, what do you think?
I love you, Geoff. I gotta disagree with that statement, and for me, the reason is that a lot of times if somebody puts up a link and I'm interested in a Kickstarter, I'll go check it out. But I'm not gonna start browsing Kickstarter all of a sudden. I got what I wanted, and I can walk away, and that happens a lot of times. You are gonna get some people who are gonna shop. It will happen, but I don't think often enough for it to be worth it. And if they're there because of Archie Comics, they're not going to go searching for, for Welcome to the Void or the Scientist or anything like that. They're going to look for the other big stuff that's there because that's why they're there. They're there for a name that they recognize. So finding something new, I don't know if I fully agree with that one. So I don't know, man. It's funny because so many people say, Kickstarter isn't to get your comic started. It's a pre-order service.
Yeah,
no, it's a pre-order service for you. That's what you've turned it into, and that's what it is for you. And that's fine for you to say that for you, but that doesn't mean that that's what it is. That's just how you're utilizing it. So don't tell me that it's a pre-order service, because that's not necessarily, like, for me, I'm with my Kickstarter, it was successful, it did well, but I'm still probably not going to make money on the comic. It was my first one, and I was only able to get so many printed and whatnot. And so it's about learning the business and stuff. But these people who have, 3, 4, 5 comics on a month, or one every other month, or whatever, like they have comics coming constantly, I guess my suggestion or my question would be, if you're able to get them on Kickstarter that often, why haven't you dropped the crutches? Why aren't you able to now take the next step and just distribute it and get it to Diamond and all that other good stuff? Why have you not made that leap? Is it because Kickstarter's too easy of a crutch, or what?
Well, that's an interesting point. And let's have this one last question, and then we're gonna talk about where everyone can follow you. But I think this one's important, and this one kind of pisses me off. And I'm not gonna give out a name, but I'm gonna set you guys up a scenario, and I want to know your opinion on this. And the scenario is turning Kickstarter into Walmart, meaning everyone wants to price their products to be the same thing. So you're gonna compare my book that's magazine size, that has beautiful art, that is 32 pages, to a 22-page black and white book that barely gets itself off the ground. And you're going to compare the two and tell me that I have to put my book as $5 because it's a comic book, is unfair. And that's what I see a lot of people doing on the pre-order aspect. They're trying to shame other creators. And I had a creator who's a friend of mine, and I put him on blast on his own post about it. I didn't make a post to bitch about him, but I did put him on blast on his own post. He turned around and he said, well, I don't understand why someone would ask for $10 for their comic book when it's 22 pages. And I was like, well, hold on, buddy. Didn't you ask for $10 for your 22-page book? And he's like, well, that was my alternate cover. And I was like, but wasn't your book black and white? I was like, so you charge that much for a black and white book, but you're putting someone else on blast. And I really think that there's too much pressure on creators to adhere to other people's price points. And 2, I leave it up to you guys. Do you think that we're so now competitive that we're okay with shaming fellow creators? Because I'm seeing a lot of shaming of fellow creators become more and more common. And it's honestly really pissing me off. What are you guys seeing? Because maybe it's just my perspective, because I interact with thousands of creators on my feed, and I search things out, and I get told a lot of things behind the scenes. Maybe I'm just a little jaded because I get a lot of people bitch to me. What are you guys seeing?
I think it's too easy to shame other people. And so the thing is that, and I'll go into an example. There was an issue with a creator recently, and a lot of people had an issue with this person. And this person can be very edgy, acerbic, difficult to deal with. Doesn't make them a bad person, just they're not always easy to deal with. And so everybody jumped on board, saying goodbye to them. And as much as this person could be a dick, I didn't immediately get rid of them. And a lot of people, one of the complaints they had is that they were being tagged in that person's stuff. And so they said, I got in touch with them. I calmly told them that I didn't want to be tagged in their stuff anymore. And then they screamed at me. We got into a fight, and now I've blocked them. So I was like, oh, well, that's a dick move by them. So that person has started tagging me and stuff. And so I contacted them and I said, hey, look, I don't mean to be rude, but I'd rather not be tagged in stuff that I'm not a part of. If you want me to share something, please contact me and ask me, and I have no issue with that. And they were like, oh, my apology. Not a problem at all. I'll let you know when I have something to show off, and I would really appreciate if you did that. And I was like, yeah, no problem. So what was the difference between me, who handled that with them, and the other person? Is the dick the actual problem, or was it that the other person came off and started blasting? And so it really is about attitude. And I think that we feel like we're on the internet and we can get away with everything, but guys, you cannot. All right, you need to smack them with the velvet glove. Take the gauntlet off, put the velvet glove on, and just be a little more respectful, and you can still get your point across.
Okay, that's solid. I like that. But what about the pricing point? You didn't really
The
address
pricing
that.
point, I honestly, I have people coming to my table because all of the different books that I edit and whatnot, they all have different prices. And people will say, well, why is this $10, but your book is only $5? Your book looks glossy or nice. Yeah, but this book is a magazine. It's bigger. It's got more pages. That's why it's worth more. It's also
It's
a
better.
bigger property.
It's big.
You know,
It's
like
better.
people know this and all that kind of stuff, so I can get more for it. Oh, okay. So
You tell them it's
yeah,
better too, right?
I think comics has actually been screwed by its pricing for a long time. Why are novels going for $25 for a novel, for like a soft cover novel, when all it is writing? Like, they haven't had to pay for art, they haven't paid for any of the other stuff that we have to pay for, and yet they're able to make so much more technical profit on a novel than we are on a comic, which is bright, beautiful colors, printed on glossy paper, all this kind of stuff. It's ridiculous. I think we're killing ourselves with our own prices and with following other people's price algorithms, and I think we need to get away from that.
Remember, our prices come directly from Marvel and DC, who are using publishers where they're paying about 50 cents to a quarter per book that they're having produced. And we keep forgetting that as we're trying to compete with people. We have no grounds. That'd be like me walking into a ring right now being a cripple going, Brock Lesnar, I'm going to kick your ass, and expecting to win. Now, if you gave me maybe a taser gun and I had an advantage, sure, but I don't have that. And we have to remember that. The one question I have for you before we move on, I want to go to Geoff next. Do you tell them the magazine-sized books are the best books on your table out of curiosity?
I tell them that it's equal to my own.
I can take that. Hey, it's your table. I'll take that. I'll take that one. All right, Geoff, what do you got? What do you think about these two highly suspect topics?
I think just pricing your stuff based on what you see everybody else pricing is a losing proposition, especially when you're not competing like at a mass market level. If you are creating something that is a limited availability product, small print run, you need to price it at whatever you think you're worth. It's irregardless of what other people are pricing their stuff at. You know how much time you put into it. You know how much money you put into it, how much heart you put into it. So, at that point, it's your work, it's your art. You charge what you want.
And what about putting each other down so quickly on social media?
Don't be jerks, everybody.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, and heading on down to Steve. What's going on? He's the editor, so I know he's got a lot to say about this one. Because you get to work behind the scenes, and as an editor, I know that I talk to Chuck about shit that's going on that pisses me off because I feel like I can because he's the editor. So I'm sure you get a lot of people like bitching to you about how things are priced and all that.
The fact is that when you're pricing something, like Geoff was saying, you're taking into consideration factors such as your competition, you're taking into consideration your own value And like an editor, like a photographer, like any service, your prices are going to range depending on how you value yourself, you know. And you might have high value, but want to make it approachable to a budget that somebody can afford versus what you can actually, which is over the top, you know. The thing is with black and white versus color pages, whether it's hardcover, soft cover, whether it's 48 pages, 96 pages, whatever the case, the fact is that you're taking into consideration everything that goes into it and pricing it accordingly. And if you're trying to mark it up because you are trying to make a little bit of money off of it, I mean, that's your prerogative. Nothing should be standard across the board or an expectation across the board, because that becomes more of a equalizing factor, okay? And if everybody expects to be equal, no matter how much work they put in, okay, then that doesn't make any sense. It's not business. As for the putting other creators down or other Kickstarters down and stuff, the fact is we live in a society right now where it has become so easy to do so. And so it's not just within the comic industry. It exists, with bullying all over the place, especially on Facebook and other social media platforms. And because of that facility, it's actually extending into a more physical world now. So it's not exclusive to comics. It isn't right by any means, but it's not right in any way.
All right, we're going to start with Steve and go down the line to everybody on the panel. Where can everyone follow you?
You're starting with me?
Yep.
Basically on Facebook at Steven Colle, Steven, and it describes there what I do. I'm also on Steven Colle hyphen Editor's Eye View on Facebook. And I'm also the administrator of the Comic Book Editors Alliance on Facebook.
All right. Go ahead, Geoff. What do you got?
You can check out my comic at scientistscomic.com.
All right. Short and simple. Feel better, Geoff. I know it's been a long day.
Take care of yourself, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, Chuck, how can they follow you?
Jeez, I'm going to feel like a whore. You can find me on Facebook, Chuck, Pineau. You'll know it's me because you'll have a big, beautiful character of this face. You can follow me on Twitter at Chucky Pin. You can find my raw reviews on YouTube, Chuck's Raw Reviews. You can, of course, find me every week on the news on Indie Advocates. And if you're looking for my books, you can check out Bonfire Press on Facebook.
And Chuck will also be doing the news tonight. He's on Tuesdays now for everyone who's gotten used to Chuck being on Monday. We switched it up because Monday is such a weird, busy day. Chuck will be able to get it in on Tuesday. I'll do an early Monday morning news. If you guys like this program and you want us to do more programs like that, let us know at indieadvocates.com. This has been brought to you by the Global Digital Comic Con, known as indieadvocates.com, dedicated to ending the reboot culture. I have been your host, Mr. Anderson, the Indie Devil and the Indie Advocate together. Who you get depends on if you piss me off or you're nice to me. So that is it for now. We're going to head on out, and we appreciate you all for checking it out, both on the live and on the YouTube networks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Let's Talk Comics.